Welcome to the Young Lionz podcast and talk show. This is your host, AC Cordell. Thank you for joining us today. My special guest today on Young Lionz is Dr. Greg Casto, a longtime friend and spiritual father to me. We're excited to have him here today. We will be talking about the topic of leadership, not just in the church, but in business and even in our own personal life. So today, again, we want to welcome Dr. Greg Casto to the Young Lionz podcast.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Young Lionz podcast today. This is your host, AC Cordell. I am joined today with somebody very special in my life to me. He not only is my current pastor, but he's also a longtime friend and somebody that I call not just a spiritual father, but a father that's been like a dad to me in my own personal life. And that is Dr. Greg Casto. And I wanted to say thank you for joining me today on this call.
It's an honor. It's an honor to be with you, AC.
Well, a lot of people don't know that my dad passed away about 4 years ago, going up on 4 years ago now. And you were actually at the hospital to come see my dad and to see me, and that has always been something special to me. That in a lot of ways, I kind of felt like the torch was being passed from my dad to you in a lot of ways, and so I have always appreciated your fatherhood and your friendship. And today, one of the topics that I wanted to talk about that I felt was very fitting was leadership in our personal lives, leadership in business and church. And we'll probably touch on a topic that I know you're very familiar with and something you like to talk about, and that is fatherhood and being a spiritual father to many people. I know that you are a spiritual father to a lot of different young ministers and just people in general across the country and even in other countries. And so I want to talk about that today. So first thing I wanted to do is just give you an opportunity. I want you to share with the people where you're at now, what your location is, the church that you're pastoring, and just give them a quick overview of what's going on with you and mom these days.
Sure. Thank you. We're in Clinton Township, Michigan, is where our church is, at the Clinton Revival Center. And we moved up here almost 3 years ago to pastor this church. We were in world evangelism, traveling all over the place, and God just led us back into pastoring, and so we came up here. We came up here by choice, and that was something that we both decided that we wanted to do. My wife and I. It's just been amazing what God has done since we've been here, and so God planted us here, and we're having a blast, and we're glad that you're a part of this with me. And I thank you for the time that I called you when I found out that you wasn't working for that church that you were at. I called you and I said, "Son, I need you." And you said, "Dad, I'm on my way." And that's exactly what you did. And I thank you so much. And the church has grown since then. That's been a few months ago. So
yeah,
it's been good.
That was when I was in Huntington, West Virginia, serving with Pastor Daryl Huffman there at New Life Church of Detroit, which is my home city where I was raised. And so it was a homecoming for me just to come back and be a part of the city again and the surrounding areas, and to be involved in ministry up here with family. So, well, listen, I know that you're just a country boy from West Virginia and Tennessee.
Right.
And so moving up to Detroit, how has that been a change for you?
Well, it's been amazing. I'm definitely a Michigander now, and
I don't know, with that strong accent, I'm not sure that you can claim being a Michigander.
Well,
we'll adopt you in.
I'm a Michigander, Tennesseer, Mountaineer. I guess that's what we could say. But it was a change. It was definitely a change. But now I'm telling you, downtown is beautiful. People that think Detroit is something bad. You just need to see inside the city. The city of Detroit is beautiful. If you've never been there, a night, day, whatever, it's a beautiful place. So we love it here. Yes, it was a big change, you know, from farmland to city all the way.
Of course, and even the mountains. Now, I love the mountains, and I love going to Tennessee. I love being in West Virginia, but there is nothing like being back home in Detroit and the Four Seasons. Anyways, I could talk all day about that.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to pick your brain for a minute on leadership. You know, one of the things that I know when I served with you in Tennessee years ago on your staff is that you're not a micromanager. And that's one of the things I've learned to appreciate. You do have expectations for your staff, but you're not a micromanager, and I do appreciate that. How has that become a vital part of who you are, not just as a person, but ministry and business wise? What brought you to that point in your life where you could say, you know, I don't need to have my thumb on every little situation?
Well, it actually started with my secular job because I had people that were actually under me, several people under me, and I was in charge of them. And so they had a specific job to do, and I would give them that job. And I would always tell them, if you make a mistake and if you mess up, you know, we're going to fix it. Sometimes problem with leadership, if someone messes up, and I'm not talking about criminally messing up, I'm talking about when somebody just doesn't do something the way that you want it done. It's not that you just get rid of them, say, well, let's find somebody, but teach them how to do it the way that you want. I've been around so many different leaders that don't have the patience to say, okay, this is the way that I want it. And a good leader will have a father's mentality. How would I treat my son? How would I treat my daughter? Would I kick my son or daughter out just because they messed up? No, I would want to instruct them how to do it right. And the one thing about you will never know how good they are in what you've allowed them to do and you've given them an assignment to do if you're going to stand over them and do it for them. So, you know, the best education for someone that's learning to do a job is give them a chance to mess up and then teach them how to fix it.
So what you're saying is you don't have a problem with somebody taking ownership of the situation, being a leader in it, and if they do mess up in the process, just going behind them and helping teach them how to have done it maybe a different way. And I think that's one of the things that I've learned from you, and I learned from my own dad, my biological father, who pastored here in the city of Detroit and surrounding areas and other states. And one of the things I learned from him and you as well is it's okay to fail. Because failing helps you to see what you don't want to do again. Right. And so I've learned a lot of times that even if I tried something and it didn't work, I was confident. I had more confidence in myself because I actually took the chance to try it. Even though it didn't work right and maybe it didn't pan out the way I wanted, I still tried it, and I didn't live with the regret of never trying it. And so that's one of the things I appreciate about you, and also, like I said, my dad, Wendell Cordell, is the fact that you guys have allowed us to try things, and if it worked, great, we celebrate together. If it didn't work, it's okay. We're going to learn from it, and then the next time we're going to have a better understanding and knowledge of what we should and shouldn't do. And that's something that I definitely have taken from you. So, you know, one of the things that I see in leadership today is some people that have a dictator mentality. And one of the things I've seen in business and in church is a lot of pastors have a hard time keeping good staff and even good volunteers because they have a dictator mentality. And what I mean by that is it's my way or it's the highway. or this is the way it works, and I'm not interested in trying anything different. And so let's talk about that, because there's a lot of churches that, and just businesses that I think could have gone to a different level if maybe they had a different mindset on how to lead. What is your take on that type of leadership as far as dictator type mentality?
Things change. We're in an ever-changing world. We're in an ever-changing society. And the things that I did back in the 90s is not effective today. So the way that I can, first of all, understand what's going on in 2019 that wasn't going on in 1990s is I have to listen to you. I have to listen to others, and then out of that, being adventurous and saying, okay, I want to hear this, I want to see. But if I see that it's a road that I have taken before, but with a different insight, but I knew the outcome, we would still go ahead and try it. We're still going to go ahead and try it. See, one of the things that happens in leadership is when we forget that, first of all, we were servants. You have to understand that. You'll never be a successful leader unless you know how to serve. And so sometimes we as leaders, even though that we're in charge and we're responsible, I don't want to say in charge, I want to say responsible. We're responsible for the outcome of the success or failure of what we're leading. And so therefore, if we're not adventurous and willing to take the new steps in the new culture, and some of the things I don't understand, and as being around me, is I will look at you and say, explain that to me. I want to understand, explain it to me. Tell me what this leads to. And then if I see it's something that is a repeat of something that failed in the 90s, and then I see it's got a new paint job or a new facelift or whatever, and then I'll say, okay, let's try this, and this is what happened in the 90s. So let's see what happens as we start this, and time changes things. What didn't work in the 90s can work and be effective today.
And don't you think that's also cultural? I mean, it's also not just cultural, but it's also demographic. I know there's things that I did in ministry when I lived in Miami years ago that I know won't work in Huntington or wouldn't work in Detroit because of culture and because of demographics. And so we have to be creative, but we also have to be relevant to the people that we are working with and serving with to understand what works and what doesn't work. One of the things that I've learned, a hard lesson over the years, 20 plus years and doing ministry and business, is understanding that my way is not the only way. And it's not just like I said a minute ago, some people have the mentality, my way or the highway, but there's also another way of saying, my way is not the only way. Absolutely. The question is, what's going to be the most efficient way, or what's going to be the most prosperous way? And that's what we have to figure out as leaders, and what is going to be the road that's going to have less construction, less obstacles, so to speak. And that's one of the things that I've tried to learn, is looking at it from a distance and saying, what's going to get us there the best way or the most efficient way? Because there are more ways than just one to accomplish the goal that you're looking for.
When I came up here with a Southern mentality. I mean, I did. I came up here with a Southern mentality.
The Bible Belt mentality.
That's right.
Yeah.
And when you come up here, you don't have that. So when I came in, I mean, I threw a lot of mud on the wall to see what was going to stick and what didn't stick. We would sweep it up. Well, guess what? A lot of the Bible Belt stuff that I threw on the wall didn't work. I mean, there was more that fell to the floor than ever stuck. And so I finally had to look at Pastor Danny, and I had said, hey, let's stop everything we're doing, because I said, I've definitely started something that is not the same as what it was in the South. So you know what I had to do is I had to listen. See, that's something that leaders need to understand. Sometimes we need to listen to those that are experienced with the culture for us to learn, and we can take our leadership skills and add to that. But if we don't know the culture, and all of a sudden we're like I did, I came up, listen, you wouldn't believe the stuff that I had going here. I mean, and it had people that were not the same as in the South. They
respond differently.
They respond differently. I had to learn that in the simplistic ways, and in the larger ways also, how to be successful here in what God's called me to do here at the church as a leader, as a spiritual father, know that I'm dealing with people of a different culture. And so how do I learn? How do the leaders learn? You listen. In some of the largest corporate businesses in the world, the leaders, the CEOs, they will go to conferences and listen to people from different cultures so that they can learn how to be effective in the areas in which they want to be prosperous in.
Well, it's funny is you look at people like T.D. Jakes that, has a large ministry and puts on different conferences. And thousands, tens of thousands of people go and they want to hear the knowledge and the wisdom that T.D. Jakes has for them during that conference. But what they don't see is the weeks before or the weeks after, when T.D. Jakes is at Pastor Stephen Furtick's conference and he's sitting there listening to gather all the information and wisdom that he can get from other people doing things that are similar. So, Pastor Jakes doesn't have all the wisdom and all the knowledge and doesn't have all the answers. He still gleams from other people that have more wisdom and knowledge in other areas that he can learn from. So we all have to understand, if we get to the point where we feel we know everything, we're in bad shape. We're in trouble. Because the truth is we don't.
If we're the smartest one in the group, guess what? We're in bad shape.
Yeah.
We're hanging out with the wrong people.
That's exactly right. One of the things my dad used to say to me was the way you handle the situation will determine the outcome. Yeah. And that's one of the things I've tried to apply in every part of my life, business, ministry, personal life, is the way you handle it will determine the outcome. And sometimes when you handle it with love doesn't always come back immediately. But I can promise you, if you leave that person or you leave that situation with the knowledge of love and respect and honor, it will end up.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I want to suggest to any of the leaders or pastors that are listening to this podcast today is, just take in consideration the people that you are working with and you're surrounded with. Pastor Cho, who pastors the largest church in the world, over 1 million people there in South Korea, he said something one time that has just stuck with me for all these years. They asked him, how have you been so successful? How have you grown this church to be this big? And he said, it's really simple. We pray and we obey. The key to that was, he said, we pray and then we listen. We listen in return. We allow God to speak back to us. And then after we've prayed and we ask God for direction and he speaks to us, our next point is to obey that. And so what we have to learn as leaders and pastors is to not just pray and obey, but pray and listen, right, and then apply the things that we have heard from the Lord to know which direction we're going. And that also applies to just in general, when you're talking to somebody, if you're talking, and that's what prayer is, it's a conversation between you and God. If you're having a conversation, if I'm having a conversation with you and you're instructing me, you're giving me information that I need, my next deal that I'm supposed to do is now put into action the conversation we just had. And that's part of obeying. So pray and obey means listen during the conversation and then apply what you've learned and see what direction you go. And I think if if leaders and pastors can get that mentality that, and I want to say this real quick. So many times I see this all the time with the pastors that I consult all the time, is pastors these days have now become janitors, professional painters, electricians. They not only just a counselor, but they've also become a punching bag. They have also become interior designers. They become, professional sound engineers. They've become, all these things and these umbrellas that they're having to work under because they don't have the proper help. And I wonder sometimes, and listening to some of these pastors that I talk to, I wonder sometimes if part of the reason why is because they don't take the time to listen to the people that they're talking to. And not only just get that information, but also let's learn how to turn loose of some things and empower people to start working in their gifts and callings. And when we do that, now we're building a team.
Right.
We're building a team that will start having the same mentality. And it may take some time. I shouldn't say may. It will take time for people to gel together and for there to be trust there. But as leaders, we have to learn to take our hands off of it, not micromanage like we talked about in the very beginning. Take your hands off of it and let people take ownership of their title, of whatever they're doing, whether it be business or ministry, and let them take ownership with it. And if they do make a mistake, if they do fail, our job as leaders is then to go to them, explain to them, direct them, so the next time they can go in the right direction. Give me some ending, closing, follow-up information. This is not going to be like your messages and have 4 closings, but give me give me some last thoughts here on this topic today on Lionz podcast.
Well, I encourage every leader, pastor, CEO, whatever you might be, is when you have a person that is very creative, let them loose them and let them go. Let them do that, because all they're doing, especially if they take ownership, is they're trying to make their position the best it can be. And if it becomes the best it can be, it's a part of your team or your business or your corporation. And one thing that out of all the years, even in the secular world when I worked, I fired very few people. I really did. I've dismissed very few people. And the reason why is because I would bring them in when they would continuously make mistakes. And, and I would try, and what I would do is I would remind them that they're not in here just because of who they are. They're in here doing the job that they're doing to make the income, because most of them had families. Mm-hmm. Most of them had wife and children and that type of thing. And if they couldn't take it, and I would tell them that, if you can't take leadership or take the control and ownership of what you're doing here, how are you doing it at home? How are you becoming successful with your wife and your children? Are you a dictator or are you a leader? Are you a listener or are you just a talker? Because if you never listen, you never learn. If you're doing all the talking, you can never know about the things that are changing around you that can help you become more successful in your business, more successful as a pastor. Listen, it's amazing to sit down and listen to the ideas that you have. And sometimes it blows my mind. You and Mark, sometimes I just sit back and go, gosh, I'm so dated. I'm out of the loop but what I do is I listen and I say, you know what? That's good. That's good stuff. But it's not the same as what it was in 1990. So what I wanted to leave you with is, please learn not just to be talkers, dictators, always having to be micromanaging. But the greatest thing you can do is listen to the issues. And then if you don't have the answer, don't give them something off the wall. Go and talk to somebody that's in the age group of that culture And you don't have to mention names, but come back with the culture mentality to help that person to achieve what they need to understand to be successful. So I say, as a leader, don't do all the talking, do a lot of listening.
I agree 100%, 100%. And I'm going to leave our callers with this right here. If you can help somebody else be successful in business or ministry, by default, as a leader, you are successful. And that was one of the great sayings that my dad, Pastor Cordell, used to say to me and say to our church all the time, that if you can help somebody else be successful, by default, you are successful. Amen. And so as leaders today, I just want to encourage you, help your staff, help your team members, help your volunteers, help your people that are in your groups, help them to be successful. And by default, you are successful. Listen, Pastor Greg, Dr. Greg Casto, Dad, spiritual father, friend, thank you for joining me today on this Young Lions podcast. We're excited about what is going on for you and Mom there in Clinton Township, and just expecting to hear great and powerful things of what's coming in store. And if you are in the area of Clinton Township, that Macomb County area just north of Detroit, go by and visit their church, the Clinton Township, Clinton Revival Center. And I know that you'll be blessed. And hey, you may even get to see me if I'm there that week. So come by and see Pastor Greg Casto, and I know that you'll be blessed there at Clinton Township. Listen, thanks for joining us today on Young Lions podcast. As always, you can always email us at ac@younglions with a Z, that is, .com, ac@younglions.com, and we'll be glad to respond to you as soon as possible. God bless you guys, and thank you for joining us today on Young Lions podcast.